Whatever happened to Dillon Weldon? I've always wanted to say that, Dillon. If you watch this guy, he always starts a lot of his stuff with that.
Yeah, yeah.
as you go back and look at country music history, Dillon Weldon, the voice of country music, joins us. Welcome, Dillon.
I appreciate you, Scott. And I want to say about you, you know, I'm happy to do this because I think that you're going to go down as an important part of someone who preserves the history of country music. So I appreciate everything you do in your book writing and doing things like this.
We met for lunch a couple weeks ago, and I told Dillon, I said, I'm going to bring you a couple of my books, and I loaded him down. He looked like a traveling library when he left. I said, here's a little homework to do. So
yeah, if you guys want to hear some stories on the legends and their life stories, Scott has helped write some folks who are no longer with us, like Jimmy Capps, and some who still are, Mo Bandy, and William Lee Golden's your most recent, I believe.
Absolutely. Dillon Weldon, I heard of this guy a couple years ago, checked him out on YouTube, and really, like everybody else, fell in love with him and the work that he's doing. He called himself the voice of country music, and I said, this young guy can't be the voice of country music. That must be self-proclaimed. And then when I got done, I said, this guy's the voice of country music. So how did that come about?
A friend of mine actually come up with that moniker. He said, you're the voice of country music. You should use that. And so for him, I did it. I didn't really particularly care for it at first. I thought it was a little egotistical, but he was like, nah, man, you should do it. And so I put it on there for him, and it's kind of stuck.
It has stuck. And it's coming true, because I saw that last week the Country Music Hall of Fame is now archiving the stuff you're doing.
Yes.
The interviews you're doing on YouTube and other places, they're saving it at the Country Music Hall of Fame for history.
Yes, and that means the world to me. And actually the same friend who gave me the moniker, I was on the phone with him. And the podcast actually reached number 36 in the world on Spotify this past year, which was a total surprise to me, just like the Hall of Fame thing was, because I was talking to that friend, and I've been on Apple for about 7 months, the podcast has. I said, I wonder if we charted on there. So we were actually trying to find that information, and I was on the phone with him, and he said, hey, did you know that the Hall of Fame is archiving your podcast? I said, no. And so sure enough, I looked, and it is, and man, to know that now we really are a part of country music history forever is just incredible and surreal, honestly.
You have a great voice for radio, but you've never done radio?
I did do radio for about a month. I was young, I was just out of college, and I had a friend who worked at a radio station, and it was, you know how these radio stations are, it's multiple stations under one umbrella, and they had one that had classic country music on Sunday mornings that I'd listened to since I was a kid. Danny White was the name of the DJ. And I was hoping to be able to do some stuff with him. So I go over there, and I was 22 at the time. They said, no, you're too young to be on the country station. You got to go on a pop station. So they threw me on a pop station, and I did that for a month, and that was all I could take of hearing that music. And I said, look, if y'all ain't going to put me on country, I'm gone. And so I left, and that was the end of my radio career for the time being, anyway.
At 22, you were too young. I started on the radio when I was 18, doing country radio in Illinois. And now tell us your history. So you didn't have any real radio experience or TV experience. What did you do for a living? How old are you right now?
I'm 32 right now. My family built houses. I went to college. I actually have a bachelor's degree in agriculture business. Nothing that I ever did had anything to do with country music other than just loving country music. I tell the story a lot that when I was a kid, for about 3 years old, I asked for a Sony Walkman. This was in the 90s, and a Johnny Paycheck's Greatest Hits at 3 years old. And I burnt that thing up. I just always loved country music. First song I ever learned all the words to was Time Marches On, old Bobby Braddock tune, which now I know Bobby, and so that's just been kind of a full circle thing. But I got out, I was going to be a veterinarian, and decided that wasn't for me. After working at one for a while, it was not something I wanted to do. And so I went in the family business of building houses for a while, and I actually ended up in Houston, Texas, and for a job in the construction business after about 10 years of doing it. And the job fell through. And I had my Tic Toc and stuff, and I had about probably 30,000 followers on there. And so I told my wife, I was like, you know, I'm going to take about a couple months and just really decide what I want to do, because at that point I was getting really burnt out. And one day I'd been applying for this and that, nothing was coming through. I went out on the porch, and I'm a spiritual person, and I said a prayer. I said, God, you say in your book the birds don't worry about what they're going to eat, and the flowers aren't concerned about what they're going to wear. So I've done it my way for 10 years. I want to give it to you, see what you got. That same week, Tic Toc announced that they were going to start paying creators with the Creator Reward Fund, which didn't mean a lot to me because I wasn't getting a tremendous amount of views at that time. I'd made a few $100s a month, maybe.
And what were you putting on Tic Toc?
Country music history stories.
Okay.
It's kind of the same thing that I'm doing now, but not as serious at all. 3 days after that, I posted a video of Hank Williams Jr. falling off the mountain. I think it was getting pretty close to the anniversary of it.
And
And
we're sitting right by Hank Jr.'s truck here at the Legends of Country Music Museum. This is quite appropriate.
Yeah.
That the video that you posted, the one that really put you on the map, was a Hank Jr.
It was. It got over 1 million views, and the next day, Tic Toc updates every day how much you got paid the day before. Next day I look and I'd made $700. And I said, wow, I could probably make a living at this if I can do it again. And so the next video I posted hits 1 million again, and I was like, man, maybe I can do something with this, and never swung a hammer again. It's been a real blessing, and I got God to thank for that because of that prayer. Honestly, I believe that with all my heart. And so here we are a few years later and still rocking and rolling.
When you were doing those first Tic Toc videos, you weren't in Nashville.
No, down in Southwest Louisiana, and moving around. You know, I lived in Austin, Texas for a year, and I lived up in Montana for a while, just doing the construction thing, bouncing around. But no, never in Nashville, but I always had a feeling that I would end up here.
And so when did you make the move?
About a year ago. Been up here for a year now.
And were you doing all video stuff then, all social media stuff?
Well, I become friends with folks like Gary Gentry. That's who I was on the phone with just before we started. And amazing songwriter, wrote The Ride, the one I loved back then. And through him, I got to be friends with Bobby Braddock and some others. And they would tell me these incredible stories. And I'm thinking, somebody's got to record these stories. And so that's how the podcast started. And it was a passion project. It was never meant to be, you know, as successful as it's been at all. I just wanted to record these people's stories and not really be consistent with it. Just whenever I met somebody who I felt like their story needed to be recorded, record it. And it caught the attention. I did one with Dickie Lee, and it caught the attention of Travis Tritt, and he got in contact with me. And I ended up meeting him down here in Midtown. And he comes up. I was actually standing in Losers in the doorway, and I heard somebody say, "Oh my God, look at who it is." And I turned around, and it was Travis. And he was pointing at me, and he come and give me a bear hug, and he said, "Man, you got to come to my house in Georgia and do one of those sit downs with me." And so we did, and after that, it really took off. I really have Travis Tritt to thank for that, because then people, you know, started coming to me like, "Hey, we want to come on," and it's really been something that I have been able to do a lot since then, and it really has just become what it is.
Travis saw your video with Dickie Lee, loved it so much he watched other videos. Then when he saw you, he approached you to come interview him. You didn't approach him.
Yes.
And then his video, with his popularity, just skyrocketed.
Yep. Yeah, Travis, he's just a really kind person and has been a great support and friend. We still keep in contact. I talk to him at least, I'd say, once a month. You know, he's busy, I'm busy, but we do keep in contact. And every now and then I get a message from him congratulating me on this or that, and I'll text him. But he's just a really good guy, been supportive. And I found that in a lot of these folks that I've gotten to interview, is that they really appreciate what I'm doing and see the importance in the preservation of the history of country music.
Your wife, how long have you been married?
My wife and I have been married for going on 7 years.
And you have a family?
It's just me and her right now and the dogs.
Whenever your wife married you, you were swinging a hammer, and what was her reaction when you got this cush job of making videos and making a living?
Yeah, there's not enough I can say about my wife. When we got married, we were dirt poor. I mean, there were times, you know, the construction business, there's times when you have work and there's times you don't. And there were times when it's like, okay, how are we going to pay our electric bill this month? You know, so that was the beginnings of our marriage. That's how it was at the start. So now we're just both so thankful to be where we are now and happy. And my wife is Hispanic. She didn't know a lot about country music when we got together, and she's grown to love it through my love of country music. She's a huge Waylon fan, just like me. She loves Waylon. So she's just having the time of her life too with me, and she's just been a huge support all the way. I don't think I could have done it without somebody supporting me the way she has.
Absolutely. Was she surprised when the money started rolling in?
Well, we're kind of still waiting on that, Scott. You know, I think a lot of folks think that people in my position make a whole lot of money. That's not true. It's a lot like the construction business. It's ups and downs. I will say it's more consistent than construction business. I don't ever worry about if I'm going to have to pay my electric bill anymore. That's for sure. But it's not like we're just, especially in Nashville. You know how Nashville living is. It's expensive. But yeah, she's happy. She's a lot happier than whenever we were worrying about if we were going to pay those bills.
I mean, this is how big Dillon has gotten. Last year at CMA Fest, was he interviewing the artists? He might have, while you're in your free time. He was at a booth at the CMA Fest request, signing autographs and meeting your fans.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, and I plan on doing it again next summer. Nashville University invited us out to do that. It's just so great. That has been the wildest thing to me, is that I can go to places like where we're at here in this great museum and walk out there and somebody comes up, man, Dillon, it's good to see you. I love your videos. And that happens everywhere we go. Everywhere we go, especially in Nashville, people come up to me and just say, man, I just appreciate what you're doing and love your videos. And if it wasn't for those people, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for the people who love the history of country music as much as I do, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So I'm just so thankful and just so honored and happy to meet people when I get to meet them. And just thank y'all for everything that we've been able to accomplish. It's really a community thing, in my opinion.
Was Dickie Lee the first interview that you did, or did you do others before that?
Dale Watson.
Dale Watson.
Dale
right.
Watson was the first one I did. Thank you, Dale, for taking that chance on me. I had no idea what I was doing. I was filming on my iPhone. You know, I really just started and kind of built my set as I went, and had no idea what I was doing. But we did a really great podcast with Dale, and Dale is, I admire him so much for what he's doing down there, what he did with the Ameripolitan Awards, and what he does to keep real country music alive. But I did Dale because I got to know him, and then I think the second one might have been Gary. Don't quote me on that. But through Gary, I did Bobby Braddock, and then I think I did Elizabeth Cook, and then Dickie Lee. I think he was about the 5th or 6th.
And what's the most memorable one that you've done?
Oh, Lord, that's a tough one. Sitting down with Bobby Braddock, and I think most of the people who've been on my podcast would agree that he's just one of the greatest legends of this industry. And like I said, the first song I ever learned the words to was Time Marches On, which was a Bobby Braddock tune. So that was great to get to know Bobby. But, you know, I've made some, like I just talked to Gary. I talk to Gary almost every day. He's become really like a family to me. And a lot of people have. Jamie Johnson was just one of the funnest that I did. I mean, I don't think I've laughed as much, which to some people that might be surprising with Jamie, because he seems kind of like a stoic character on stage, you know, very serious, but he's so funny. And we had such a good time. And Travis, of course. It's hard to pin down one because each of them have their own great things about them.
have you a goal as far as an artist or two that you still want to get in the future?
You know, there have been 3 so far that have said no, that I would really love to have. One of them being Willie, obviously. I would love to, Willie's like the pinnacle. Another pinnacle, though, is Bobby Bear. And Bobby's 90 years old, so I understand, you know, these guys they're older and they're still doing a whole lot, but they would be at the top. And then Bob McDill. Bob McDill's another one that said that he wasn't really interested in doing a podcast. But those are 3 legends, and if I never get to do them, that's fine. I'm so appreciative of what they've done for country music, and I love them.
I know we have something in common. The reason that I moved here was my love for Country's Family Reunion.
Yep.
I loved that show. I loved Larry's Country Diner. I wanted to work for him, and I was a TV news anchor at the time. I moved down here, got a job with Larry Black. I know you love the Country's Family Reunion as well.
Yeah, I told Bill Anderson when I recently had him on, I really believe that he and Larry Black had a big influence on me to get where I am right now, because I always loved the music. But I remember just being glued to the TV when my dad would watch, you know, those family reunions, and hearing all these stories about all these legends from the legends, most of them who are no longer with us now, sadly. But hearing all those stories, I remember thinking as a kid how cool this is to hear these firsthand accounts, and how important it is while they're still around for these guys and women to be able to tell these stories. And I think that's really what instilled that passion into me.
I read on your website, you said your goal next year, the mission stays the same. Keep the stories and history of country music alive and honor the legends.
Yeah, I don't think that'll ever change. I mean, that's why I started, and that's why I'll keep going, is to keep the stories alive and to inform. You know, when I started, you couldn't have convinced me that there would ever come a day where I'd have 1.2 million followers across everything. You couldn't have convinced me that. I'd have told you was crazy, because I just didn't think there was that many people that cared like I care. And there is, and that's been the biggest shock to me. And I, again, just so thankful for those people. So yeah, I'm going to keep on doing it until I can't anymore, and hopefully that's a long time from now.
So this is where things stand right now. This year on Spotify, Drifting Cowboy. Now, I'll get back to this in a moment. First of all, why do you call it Drifting Cowboy?
That's funny. Because I think everybody knows as much as I know about country music. And to me, a basic bit of knowledge is that Hank Williams' band was the Drifting Cowboys. And really, I named it that as homage to Hank Williams, who was one of the greatest to ever do it. And but a lot of people, I've had, you know, you get a lot of hate comments on everything you do online. You just have to have thick skin to do what I do. And I've got some, why do you call yourself a cowboy? You don't even wear a cowboy hat. And I'm like, you're showing your ignorance here. But yeah, it's all about Hank Williams' band, and that was just my homage to country music history.
So on Spotify, Drifting Cowboy hit 36 in the U.S. And is in the top 5% of all video podcasts.
Yep.
Of everything, all the famous people doing podcasts, you're in the top 5%.
Yep.
It grew faster than 99% of the shows on the platform.
Yeah. And that was all a shock to me. I just found this out, I guess, a week and a half ago. They send you all of your statistics there at the end, and it was very humbling to read that, to know that we're growing that fast, and again, that there's just that many people that cares to sit down and listen to an hour podcast of these legends telling their stories. It's so great. I'm really excited to see what happens next year. If we hit 36 this year, I'm hoping next year maybe we'll crack the top 20, you know?
All right, Dillon, here's where you give the lesson to the newcomer to YouTube and to everybody else who's watching. Okay, if somebody's wanting to be the next Dillon Weldon like I'm wanting to, okay, you started how many years ago of doing your Tic Toc?
About 5.5 years ago.
Okay, you did the Tic Toc. Then what's the next step after that?
Well, when Tic Toc started blowing up, I got it up to, after that Hank thing, by the end of that summer, so the Hank video, the first one that blew up was in the end of March of 23. By the end of July of that same year, I'd went from 30,000 to 100,000 followers on there, and I thought, man, I should probably diversify. And so I got on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and started just posting the same things across all platforms. Facebook went crazy. The first month I got 50,000 followers. It was pretty insane. So I just diversified and started growing the followings on everything. YouTube's the hardest though. YouTube is still very difficult. But
And why is that?
I think it's just how the platform is. You know, it's great when it's good, but it's unforgiving whenever, and it's really all, I'm not blaming the platform. It's all yourself, and I do everything myself. I make the thumbnails and stuff. So when I have a video that doesn't do as good as other videos, I'm analyzing. Why was it the thumbnail? Was it the title? Was it the hook? You know, there's a lot that goes into making a good video. So I'm always analyzing. And I made a pact back then with a friend of mine, Josh, who also makes a living off of social media now. We weren't at the time that we made this pact, that we were gonna consistently post videos and try to make the next one better than the last. And we both did that. Now we both make a living on social media. And I still do that today. I try to make the next one better than the last one.
YouTube, you say, is the hardest or toughest. Does it pay the most?
On long form, it does. On short form, so the vertical stuff that I do, TikTok is probably still what pays the best. Instagram doesn't pay at all. Facebook pays, but it's about half what TikTok pays, and YouTube doesn't really pay great at all in the shorts. But as far as long form goes, if you have a video that does well in long form, yeah, it could be life-changing money. I haven't got there yet, but I'm hoping to, with enough consistency and time, to get there where I can really make the bulk of my money off of YouTube.
The first TikTok was the Hank Jr. You're just there on your phone telling the story. That's all you're doing on that?
Funny thing about that is my wife had been in a car accident, pretty serious car accident, and she was having to go to physical therapy at the time. And so I'd drive her to physical therapy, and I would just sit in the car. I filmed that video sitting in the car waiting on my wife to get out of physical therapy. You know, no lights, no microphone, nothing, just the sunlight. And filmed that in the car, not knowing that this video is about to change everything. I'm sitting in a car waiting on my wife to get out of a doctor's appointment and filmed that video, and it changed everything.
And you just told the story of Hank Williams
Yep.
Jr. and his hunting accident. Was that the one?
I said, you ever wonder why Hank Williams Jr. has that beard and wears those glasses and that hat? And then I told the story.
Wow, and that's it.
That's
Have you
it.
ever interviewed Hank Jr.?
I have not. I've become friends with his youngest son, Sam. I see him from time to time. I would love to interview Hank. Obviously, another country music legend. I don't know if there's any of them that I wouldn't love to sit down with and hear their stories. Though.
He would love to hear that story if he hasn't, of how you
Yeah.
just telling his story changed your life.
Yeah, I bet so. And hopefully one of these days we can make that happen.
So the platforms you're on right now, what are they?
Just about everyone you can think of, except Twitter. I never got on Twitter. I don't know why. I never understood the platform, so I never got on it. So that's about the only one I'm not on.
Instagram doesn't pay. Does it let you help promote to the other sites or no?
Well, the good thing about Instagram that I like, and the reason that I keep it up, is it prioritizes. I make a lot of connections through Instagram. When somebody with a lot of followers follows you, it puts it in a priority category where other platforms don't. If somebody really famous follows you on Facebook or TikTok, you'll never know it unless you happen to see it. Instagram prioritizes that, and you can communicate with those people, or when they like something of yours. You know, one of the craziest one is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson follows me on Instagram.
Really?
And he likes my stuff from time to time and has commented before. Actually, when I reposted that Hank story, I think he commented and said that one of his favorite songs, I believe, was "Feeling Better," maybe, or
yes.
"All in Alabama," one of those songs. But so to know that people like that follow you is is crazy. But that's the cool thing about Instagram is that it does let you know.
Wait till you get The Rock on an interview.
I would love to. That'd be really cool. To talk about, apparently he has a deep love for country music, and I'd love to talk to him about it.
Now tell me I'm old school, so I'm used to doing the interviews, but what's the difference between a podcast and an interview?
You know, I'm not going to name any names here, but there are a lot of people who don't understand that. And I myself, I'm not blaming anybody, but because I need to get better at explaining to my guests what a podcast is. A podcast is a conversation that's recorded, whereas an interview is more Q&A. But a podcast, you can get off on a side trail and talk about this or that, and it doesn't really matter because it's just a comfortable conversation that's being recorded. That's how I look at it. Whereas an interview is more, I'm going to ask you questions, you give me an answer, and we're going to move on to the next question kind of a thing. It's the way I look at it anyway.
Okay, so all the platforms, Instagram, Tic Toc, YouTube, what else you on?
See, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Threads is the other one that the Facebook conglomerate owns. I don't get on there much, but everything I put on Instagram automatically posts over there. I think that's it.
You can make money on Facebook.
Yes.
I never knew that.
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of people who make a lot of money on Facebook. I don't. I mean, some months are good, some months are okay. But I've heard of some of my other creator friends who have, millions of followers do really well on Facebook. Hopefully we'll get there one day. We just hit 500,000 on Facebook, so really happy about that.
Wow, that would be hard to maintain as far as your page would get out of control, and I don't...
Yeah, it's not always easy. I kind of have a system, when I post one video, I post it across everything, and I try to get back with people. I have a lot of people message me and stuff, and apologies to some people. Sometimes I'll come across messages when I'm walking through the airport or something and don't get back, and I actually had a guy get really angry with me a while back because I'd read his message and didn't respond. It was not because I didn't want to respond. I just was going through an airport or something at the time, and so apologies to anybody that I don't get back to, but I try to get back to most people and be interactive with everybody because I know the reason that people follow me is because they love country music like I do, and so it's good to talk to those people.
What is your personal goal? What do you hope for the future?
That's a good question. I hadn't really put a lot of thought into that because, like I said that prayer to God of the birds don't worry about what they're going to eat and the flowers don't concern themselves about what they're going to wear. So I really live every day and pray and think, God, what do you have next for me? Because when I turned it over to God, I turned it over to Him. And I'm not looking at what my next goal is. I really want to see where He's going to take me because He's taken me places I would have never believed I could have gotten, and so I'm thankful for that. And so I just live every day of, God, let's see what you got.
Dillon, tell us the Waylon cap. What's the story on that?
Well, my mind, if you spend any amount of time with me, my mind is always in social media. It's really a passion of mine to know and think about what's going to be the attention getter. And when I was living in Austin doing construction work, I was in a academy and come across a yellow and white Shiner beer hat. And I was like, that hat, that yellow and white, is just going to bounce out and catch people's attention. So I started wearing that. And I wore that for a long time, and the people at Shiner were really good to me. They sent me a lot of stuff. I went and toured their facility. Really great people. But when I saw the Waylon one, I said, you know what? That hat is even more flashy, and it's Waylon, who I love. I'm going to start wearing that one. And I think through this hat is how I kind of got to be friends with all the people in the Waylon camp, got to be friends with Shooter, go out and hear this new record before it ever came out and help them promote that. And it's just, this hat has been a big blessing to me. And I have about a dozen of them. And I actually need to message them and tell them to send me another box of them. I think this is the last one. And when they get dirty, I've tried washing them and they just lose their form. Every single way you can think of, I've tried the hat form things that don't work. So I toss it and get me a new one. And but the Waylon hat has been a big blessing to me. And when I see people in public, they say, "We saw the hat first," and then they say, "That's got to be him."
You're known for that hat, and I'm sure that whenever you want to not be recognized, you just take it off and people don't recognize you. But when you don't mind about people seeing who you are, you put it on.
I hadn't got to the point where I would want to go incognito. You know, I love seeing people and them telling me, "Hey, my favorite videos when you talked about this," or "How was it being with this person?" I love that. It is, sometimes it gets a little odd because like my parents came up during the summer and my siblings, and we went up to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. And we went through and did the tour. I've met a couple people there, but I got back and I had probably 5 or 6 messages on Facebook and different platforms that was, "Hey, was you at Mammoth Cave today?" And some people, I was at an event with John Daly, had done this charity golf thing back in the summer, and I got a video of myself interacting with John. It was like, "Hey, was this you?" You know, so you always have to act like you're on camera, you know.
Absolutely. And have you ever met Jesse Coulter?
I have not. I would love to. I did get to talk to Shooter about how she's doing. She seems to be doing really well, living out in Arizona. But I would love to. She's a legend.
That would be a popular podcast for you to do.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
You never got to see Waylon in concert?
No, I was only 9 or 10 years old when Waylon passed away, unfortunately. Would have loved to. You know, I was fortunate enough to see some of my favorite legends, though. Saw George Jones twice. I actually got his autograph when I was a kid. Got to see, my very first concert, which I don't remember because I was a baby pretty much, was Merle Haggard.
Wow.
So I've been fortunate to get to see a lot of the legends, but Waylon wasn't one of them, unfortunately.
I showed you this over lunch, and we'll show it on the screen. There's a picture of me and Waylon.
That's incredible.
And that was when I was at my coolest. I'm wearing a Burt Reynolds Trans Am coat, and I'm in the kitchen with Waylon.
That's a great coat.
Yeah, and there's another one. This is me, and when I had a
looking like Keith
mullet.
Whitley.
Yeah, I had a mullet, and that's at Bobby Bear's teddy bear store called the Bear Trap.
Yep.
Not far from the Legends of Country Music Museum where we're at right now, just across the Music Valley Drive. He had it for years.
That's incredible.
His teddy bear store, and Waylon was great friends with Bobby Bear, and he would come hang out at the teddy bear store. Imagine Waylon Jennings at a teddy bear shop. Dillon, we met at the Grandoleopry backstage. We were both interviewing Bill Anderson. Mm-hmm. And I had been a fan of yours for the last year or so, really watching all of your stuff. And I said, "Man, can I get a picture with you?" And then I got your number and said, "Could we go out to lunch?" And I took a lot of time. It was a pretty long lunch.
It was.
And picked your brain, got all your tips. And I said, "I'm just getting my YouTube going, doing kind of the same stuff you're doing, but different." And that first month on your tips, now this is not Dillon Weldon money, but that first month on YouTube, I made $1,500.
That's incredible.
And here we're off and rolling.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad.
Thanks to your input and your advice.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're being successful with it. Like I said at the beginning of this, I think what you're doing is so important, and I'm glad to know you.
Well, you're going to be more glad than that. Give me this, Tim. Dillon, I know that you never got to meet Waylon. Waylon had an estate sale in 2000, and I went to it. I lived in Illinois at the time. And this is one of his coats that I bought.
No kidding.
And it has all the patches of places that he worked with at the time.
Wow.
Jim Halsey, RCA, William Morris, all these others.
Wow.
And give me that letter there. So that was Waylon's coat, and there's a little letter that Waylon and Jesse wrote, and so I got that in December of 2000.
Wow.
And I've had it 25 years, and now it's yours.
Man, I don't even know what to say, Scott. That is Thank you so much. This means the world to me, and I promise you it'll be treasured. Thank you so much for that.
You can either wear it or put it up on your wall. It's been on my wall. I've never wore the thing. I wanted Waylon to be the last person to wear it.
Yeah, no doubt. I'd be too scared to wear it. This is so incredible.
Whenever you interview Jesse sometime, maybe wear that one.
I can tell you, he must have got it in the 90s.
I'm sure.
That's a very 90s
Ain't it?
windbreaker. Man, this is so cool. I can't wait. I'm going to have to text Shooter a picture of it. I'm sure he'll remember it. That is so cool. Thank you, Scott.
There you go. There's your letter from Waylon and Jesse.
Wow, I appreciate that so much.
I've had that 25 years, and I said, I've got the guy that needs that right now. So.
Well, I sure appreciate that. That means more than I can put into words. It really does.
Dillon, thank you for your time, buddy. Larry Black and Country's family reunion, they did what we loved for all those years. I'll tell you, and I gave you his phone number, so I hope that you'll call him and do an interview with him.
I'm waiting until I finish your book.
All right.
I'm working on it right now.
It's a long book of his, but get an interview with Larry, and then after you get that interview done, I'm going to consider his torch that he had lit all those years. I'm going to consider it passed to you, because I think that you're the guy that's going to run with that torch, and I'll be running behind you, cheering you on, and I'll be doing my own thing, and I just can't wait to see the great things that are ahead for you in Nashville.
Well, I so appreciate you, Scott, and I'm your cheerleader now too. So anything I can ever help you with, you know how to get a hold of me.
Dillon Weldon, do you ever wonder what happened to Dillon Weldon? Oh, he's just some bum, moved to Music City, and he's wearing Waylon Jennings' coat.
Well, you guys be sure to check out Scott's books and his YouTube channel that's taking off right now.
All right, good. After you watch Dillon's stuff, and check mine out as well. We'll show you a good time.
I appreciate you, Scott.